Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. You're seeing it is now 8:32 in the Central Time Zone, and we're rolling live, and thankfully so. Looks like all of the systems are green. A couple of you all saying you missed me yesterday. I missed you too. I actually did. I don't like my day getting derailed. I know this has become a part of your routine. It's a big part of my routine, obviously, as well. So I appreciate that you guys have made me part of your day, and you're part of my day. And we had a little bit of a snafu, and I'm not going to tell you what happened because I don't actually know, but I will give you the facts and you can make your own determinations. I actually don't want to get too conspiratorial about it, but a couple of weeks ago, first of all, we moved a few months back, and we moved into a new facility here, a new home, and I used the same internet service, Spectrum, that I'd used down the street. We're one zip code away. We're 7 minutes down the road. We're, just a couple of miles as the crow flies. And so I used Spectrum because it was great every single day that we used it. And we used it for 2 straight years from the beginning of April of 23 all the way until the end of April of 25. Moved into this house, set up everything. Many of you didn't even notice when we made the move. The continuity was perfect. And when I went with the same internet provider. And that seems like a thing that you might do. And then a couple weeks ago, we started having some issues. We started having some signal drop, and we started having some difficulty with bandwidth. And that could happen. We're in a different neighborhood. Maybe different people are using the bandwidth. So I went and I got our second line because redundancy comes from my military background. Many of you guys know this. And if you're not actually doing this sort of game, if you don't know that 2 is 1 and 1 can be none, then, learn that. It's good. You always want to back up for something. So we did some redundancy. We got another line in here. We got AT&T fiber. It was even faster than the previous line. It was awesome. So I was pretty excited about that. And for about 2 weeks, we had a perfect, uninterrupted, no problem signal. And then we started getting a little bit of glitchy stuff that was popping up. And then yesterday, I had intermittent glitches on both different independent internet providers. I confirmed both with the tech support online, with the sales guy that I talked to face-to-face who showed up at the house to talk to me, and also the technicians, that the internet backbones that they are using, the fiber system and the coaxial copper, are not running back into the same infrastructure. They are not on the same tie-ins. They don't actually share any channels or routes. So 2 independent signals, and by the way, I haven't heard any of my neighbors complain about this, and we do talk, but 2 independent internet providers were unable to keep a constant service for more than a few minutes, and that meant that we couldn't do the show yesterday. And so that's what happened, and that's full transparency. I tagged them on social media. To their credit, they both came out. Spectrum fixed the problem as far as we can tell. They've done this before. This is their 3rd trip out here. Sure. We got that done. So we got new modems and new routers, and we got new cables running in, and we've got new splitters and all that kind of stuff. And they did that. And then the AT&T guy came out and did the same thing. He swapped out a modem, swapped out the gateway, swapped out some of the fiber tips, cleaned all the things, and supposedly we're good to go. So if you guys experience anything, make sure you do let me know in the comments below. If you see any glitches and you go back in the replay and you see the glitches on there and you see it and I don't, please let me know because I do want to know about those things. We're going to do the best we can. I've actually moved the entire system here that we are working on onto battery backups, both the modems and the entire studio here, all the lighting and everything else, which some of you guys have seen. This is the overhand shot if you haven't seen it, but we've got lights up in the rig here. We've got speakers, we've got monitors everywhere, soundboard, the whole thing. And all of that stuff is to say, I've done as much redundancy as possible. It's not grounding, it's a lot of electrical wiring. So if we have glitches or gremlins, maybe those gremlins, like one of you sent me, are wearing an FBI or a government agency hat, but I can't confirm it. And I don't want to say that that's what happens. I just am pretty damn suspicious based on the way things have been going in our lives. Maybe you are also suspicious of things that are out there in the world. So let's do a quick read for one of our sponsors, our friends over at patriot-protect.com/Kyle at the end of it. So patriot-protect.com/Kyle. You might know that there are password leaks that are happening all the time. There are people that are constantly trying to uncover your data. I'm hoping that's not what happened to us here. We do have Patriot Protect. I have noticed a pretty strong decrease in things, except when I piss off the wrong people. I think they can get around Patriot Protect's protections if they're in the government. But if you guys want to avoid scammers, if you want to avoid people that are hackers, if you don't want people to have to even hack you, they can just go buy your password and log in. You may want to get a service like Patriot Protect. They're the ones we use. They remove your personal data, your name, your address, your phone number, and more from the public websites that do what they call data brokering. And they either do it by clicks or by subscription, and they sell off your information so that people can target you. You become a lead like any other sale, except the sale is to scammers who are trying to go out there and con you most often. They also run a blackout service, which allows you to know whether or not your email and your phone number and your passwords and things have been compromised on the dark webs. They are scanning those in the marketplaces and trying to find out if you've been exposed so you can change them. So you don't have to deal with that. You can take action before you have to go and do a reaction and try to find your money that someone may have taken. Criminals are counting on easy targets. If you don't want to be an easy target, put up the shield with Patriot Protect. Make yourself a hard target while everyone else remains vulnerable. Everyone doesn't do this. It's relatively inexpensive as well. It's just a couple dollars a month. Check them out. Again, patriotprotect.com/Kyle. You'll save 15% on an annual subscription. And I'm going to have Skip come on. He's one of the co-founders and talk about some of these cyber breaks whenever they start happening. We see them in the news because I do want people with a little bit more knowledge in that space. Cyber is not my world. Handguns all day long. Emergency medicine, yes. Cyber, we'll get an expert. All right, we're going to get into today's show. I've got a lot of video that is stored up from 2 days worth. So we're going to see how much we can get through and see what kind of fun stuff we're going to cover. Are you not entertained? Yes, are you not entertained? That's the great quote from the movie Gladiator, not the new one that has Morgan Freeman for some reason. Although I love Morgan Freeman, I don't know why he was in the Gladiator movie. This is the quote that made me think of what's going on out there today.
Are you not entertained?
Are you not?
Are you not entertained?
Right? Are you not entertained? He goes out there and he just dominates on the field of battle in the Gladiator space. And he gives up the game because the game of the Gladiator, they were actually called games, the Gladiator games. The scam that was going on was, can we entertain the population, baffle them with BS, if you will, and get everybody looking one direction while we quietly pilfer the treasury and we quietly are scamming and running all kinds of businesses that are defrauding everybody, but at least they're entertained. They have the bread and circuses. This is a thing that many of you guys are familiar with. We're always distracted by this crap. So let me give you, if I can, I'm going to give you the bottom line up front. This is the supposition. It's very interesting to see when comedians are the first to spot it. I do think that comedians are very astute observers of the human condition, and then they point it back out to us in a way that we can hear it. Now, Joe Rogan has kind of crossed over from comedian to commentator. But it was always comedians and clowns and jesters that made salient points about the thing that was going on in a way that the regular people could digest it. When the comedians and the jesters and the clowns are saying the quiet part out loud and asking if you're not entertained and calling out this BS, I do think that we're at a turning point in some ways. It doesn't mean we're going to see anything change. It just means that there's an awareness, a higher awareness. Yeah, I'm seeing the chat out there call it out too, so we'll just put you guys on the screen. George Carlin was also great at this. Almost all good comedians are pointing out true either social or political realities, and they're doing it in a way that we can all laugh and that we can all have a good time. And then later on, the reality of that joke hits home and you think, good God Almighty, is this really what we voted for? Is this really what we're putting up with? Is this what our system is supposed to be? That was good. That was the wrong button on my end. Sorry. I thought I had the wrong thing queued up. All right. So Joe Rogan says this is all theater. We've made that argument here. I'm just laughing that I pushed the wrong button after all that. Okay. The argument is that we're all dealing with theater and that all of these people are like cartoon characters. They're not even like real human beings. They're coming out of a sitcom, the sit-down comedy. Someone drafted them up and said, can we get this lady? Can we get the old angry black lady? Can we get the spicy young obnoxious lady who lives down the street? Can we get this? And we're going to actually show you all of these different characters. They're all kind of being exposed, even people we like. Like, I generally like what Ted Cruz has to say. And then you put him in a side-by-side with Tucker. I generally like what Tucker has to say. And he wants the two of them kind of expose each other for being biased and representing viewpoints that are kind of silly. Jay Keeps just said, all the world is a stage. I think Joe is making that argument, and I think many of us are seeing that politics is, in fact, show business for ugly people. It's just a really, really badly scripted show business. It's a really badly scripted drama.
Yeah. It just seems fake. There's so much that seems fake. You know, it's like all the news, the people that are politicians. Everyone feels like they're like, who's the Fetterman character? This guy is wearing a hoodie and shorts. That's the wacky neighbor, you know. And then Jasmine Crockett, she's that loudmouth lady from down the street, and they're like, "Oh, here comes Jasmine. Shit's gonna get crazy," you know. And Maxine Waters is like, "Oh, she's old. Leave her alone. Leave her alone." It's like these are fake people. Nancy Pelosi, this giant tittied lady who wants all the money, who's been in politics for 150 years. There's pictures of her with Kennedy.
I didn't realize Nancy Pelosi was well endowed.
Oh boy. Really? Yeah.
You've done the research.
Well, there's all these photos where people are calling her, what's a gilf? A grandma you'd like to... Yeah. You never seen her boobs?
No, I have never seen Nancy Pelosi's boobs, Joe.
No disrespect, Mrs. Pelosi. I admire her for her stock choices, but...
Fantastic.
Those are legit.
You know, I got to say, this is a great start to the podcast, and we aren't even stoned.
How did you not know? How did you not know that you're a grown man? Look at the size of those fucking sweater hammers.
That is incredible. That has made me a lot more in favor of Congress.
So is that? Wow. Hold that. Go to that last picture.
This one might not have been, but
that seems
real.
fake. But it might be like from the Clinton administration.
I'm not going to belabor Joe Rogan oogling Nancy Pelosi any further, but I'm telling you, this all does appear to be theater. It continues to look like it, and there's more and more evidence of it. In fact, sometimes they just come out and tell you, hey, what we're doing is kind of theatrical. It's K-fob. It's choreographed dancing that looks like a fight. And that upsets the hard-hitting news types at NBC News. There was a DOJ coordination with the Texas AG to kill the Texas Dream Act, a Trump official said while he was at a private meeting for Republican donors. And that's very offensive. Here's the story from Ryan Riley. I like Ryan. I don't know why Ryan's offended by this, but it does seem like he got that tin to him because I know how Ryan thinks about these things. A top Justice Department official boasted, see, it's the key, it's the wording, words like boasting, that a private Republican gathering, there was a Trump administration official here, was able to kill a Texas law that gave undocumented immigrants in-state tuition in 6 hours. In other words, it took 6 hours for them to demo this thing. By coordinating with the Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, according to a recording obtained by NBC News. Somebody that was at that private Republican gathering shared it. On June the 4th, the Justice Department sued Texas over the Texas Dream Act and then quickly filed a motion in Texas with a judge asking to have the law declared unconstitutional and permanently enjoin Texas from enforcing that law. And the same day, the judge did. Now, most Americans should be really happy about that because people who are undocumented, aka here illegally, they're criminal aliens, they're in violation of Title VIII, you wouldn't want them to be getting funding and free tuition or in-state tuition, which means subsidized by me, a taxpayer in the state of Texas. Doesn't that seem like you're kind of aiding and abetting like this crime and you're allowing them to stay here for cheaper? You're giving them benefits that are public benefits that they didn't earn, that they shouldn't have? They're foreign students. Charge them the full price. That's what we do to the Chinese. That's the entire argument for having people that are not from America. But of course, the argument is softly that the undocumented immigrants, aka illegal aliens, they are aliens, they are not American, and they don't have documents, which means they came here illegally. The documents would be like a green card or a visa, the things that you would need. It's just this movement of the conversation. And so the DOJ person boasting about it should be something that all Americans go like, yeah, duh, that's what happens. You come here illegally, you don't get to stay. You don't get free benefits, quote unquote, free benefits that the entire American public has to pay for. That should be like a no-brainer. But this is where it gets really interesting, and I think it goes to the Joe Rogan point. Outside organizations sought to invalidate the ruling on Tuesday, arguing that the Justice Department and Paxton's office colluded to secure an agreed injunction and engaged in improper legal choreography. Legal choreography sounds like a fancy word for K-fab, which is the play dancing and the scripted fighting that goes on in professional wrestling. And by professional, I mean the big juiced up, men with no necks. They got their desired legal outcome. Isn't that just smart governance? If the federal government at the federal level is run by Republicans and a state also wants to get certain actions accomplished, and particularly in a place where Ken Paxton, he's going to be running for Senate, he's trying to accomplish something, and he's in an executive authority, he's the attorney general in the state of Texas. If they're like, hey, this law was passed through the legislature, but we're pretty confident that it is not a constitutional thing and we should not have to enforce it as the state of Texas, why don't we just call our friends up at the Justice Department and have them do that thing? The question is this: would there ever be an opportunity that our friends in the other side of the aisle would not do the same thing? Would they not do this in New York? Would they not do this in Illinois if there was an opportunity for them to win? I'm confident they would. I'm 100% confident they would. So having this sort of legal choreography and acting like that's a bad problem, or saying that having an attorney general that has good relationships with the Justice Department that allows them to get things done, that's the thing that's actually missing from the Republican Party, the ability to govern when power is in the hands of the people that need to have it. If you're representing the state and the federal government happens to be on the same side, and your state voted overwhelmingly for said federal government in that way, God forbid you actually use put your heads together and try to figure out how you could be effective. And that takes me to kind of the other thing that I keep seeing. On social media, I saw this morning, a couple of people tagged me on it, Ed Martin, Eagle Ed Martin, who is now he's the pardon attorney, and he's supposed to be working on weaponization issues at the DOJ. He brought up that if you were bullied by our federal government over the last couple of years, and by the way, there wasn't just conservatives. Conservatives were the target that most of us are aware of. But there were Democrats and there were like people who leaned even harder on the left that were in fact attacked by the Justice Department, because the Justice Department, even though it does lean aggressively in a partisan manner, it also is using animals like the FBI and the DEA, the Marshal Service and so on, and they go where they can get money, where they can get wins. And if those wins just happen to be like, I don't know, setting up a bunch of BLM activists with a cop who, like Nancy Pelosi, has like enormous melons, and they set up a backstory that she's a sex worker, if that's the move, then that's where they go. They follow the funding. And they went after people and tried to set them up and set up dudes in Colorado. And you can follow our friend Trevor Aronson, who did a whole story on this. He did a podcast, like a mini-series podcast called The Alphabet Boys, which highlights the ridiculous nature of when you have a very specific outcome in mind and you pursue it. That's what weaponized government is. It's not necessarily partisan, which is why we're able to punch at both sides over here. To see them being upset about this is quite funny to me. I'm going to tell you a couple of other kind of like weird kayfabe stories. I don't have any footage of this, and I didn't even put the slide up because it's actually kind of crazy. The Liver King. There's this guy named Brian Johnson, and he was just arrested in Austin for making threats against the star of our first clip, Joe Rogan, out of nowhere. At some point in time, I think people actually lose their minds. I think they actually, they give in to the character that they're playing. This guy is, if you've never seen him, he's this super like professional wrestler looking, muscled out freak with this huge beard and like long hair. And he's like totally supposed to be untamed. And the reason that he's such a jacked, freakish, muscle building, badass guy is because he just eats like liver and heart muscles and testicles. And he's like uber caveman-y. Yeah, but he's also on steroids. I mean, he's on steroids, right? Because that's how he ended up so jacked. And then for some reason, he's been out there talking about how he wants to fight Joe Rogan, which, by the way, is not a good idea. If you've ever seen Joe Rogan deliver like leg kicks, Joe Rogan could be a low-level professional fighter. He probably wouldn't be the best in the world, but the dude is competent and capable. And he sure as hell is going to take down a bodybuilding weirdo that runs around on all fours and, carries heavy things for long periods of time. If you've ever seen somebody who's like a bodybuilder fight someone who is a trained fighter, it's not fair. It's not like technique wins. And technique and being jacked, super dangerous. Anyway, this guy came to Austin apparently to go to fight Joe Rogan for no reason. And he was arrested for making a bunch of terroristic threats on Instagram and some other places. It's kayfabe. I actually believe that guy probably bought into his own weird, he's one of the weird characters out there in the world too. He's just on the social media end of things. He's not on the politics, right? So we've got a couple of other things that were done out there in the space, and I want to just cover, like, we missed a day, and this would have been fun to play yesterday, but we'll keep doing it. There's a handful of these just weird moments where the dumbest things are being highlighted and there is zero substance. The substance is that Donald Trump sat down with the folks at NATO. This is actually one of Donald Trump's best things. He goes overseas. He plays a character to the American people, right? Donald Trump is a character. He's always been a character. He's a guy that had a gold toilet, for God's sake. That's not a normal thing that people do. Donald Trump has promoted the persona of strength when dealing with foreign leaders. And then he's backed it up with the policy in general. That's generally the way that Trump does it, which is why people on the right sort of like, yeah, we know it's kind of a character. We know that Donald Trump was actually on WWE wrestling matches, was he not? He used to, like, you know, go fight with Vince McMahon. It would be like the Billionaire Bash or whatever the hell it was. But he kind of plays that in real life now, and we kind of like it. We like him going to NATO, and we like him going out there and pushing the envelope with these people because they're creepy and they're weird and they do strange stuff. And so, you know, he's out portraying himself as the guy that we think he is. So here he is doing one of the weirder little sit downs. It was after the NATO push. They have this meeting and they're doing like an after action. And I can't remember what this guy's name is, but I think he's from, well, I'll let him talk. They do this weird little talk about how you have to treat other nations. And Trump uses the analogy because he's a grandfather and he's a father of like dealing with fighting kids, that the European nations are like squabbling kids and the United States is kind of like the father figure. And then this European guy says this really awkward statement about the daddy coming in and using tough terms, which is what was seized on. And again, nothing but clown fest. So I got this great clip of a woman asking Donald Trump if Europe sees him as a daddy. Like, that's how dumb we are right now. That's what you used your one moment to talk to the president of the United States at like a so-called historic meeting. Anyway, watch this.
Fight like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easy to stop them.
And then daddy has to sometimes use strong language to
You have
get
to
us
use
off.
strong.
Yeah, daddy has to use a strong language. And where did that come from? It came from this quite, like, the reason why I found that clip is because I wanted the context for a Sky News reporter asking this, CNN broadcasting the conference where Trump came in. I think the real story is actually what Fox actually carried the real story, which is that Europe and NATO basically bent to the will of what Donald Trump required of them. Again, this was stuff that was probably more relevant yesterday morning, but I think it's still worth knowing that the guy that Trump is presenting himself out to the world is taken seriously by those people, even if people on the political left in the United States don't take him that seriously. Anyway, here's the ridiculous question. Did you have the leaders in NATO refer to you? Do they think of you as daddy?
Go ahead. Back white. Yeah. White jacket. Yeah. Go ahead. Give my mic. Hello.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News.
Good.
Mark Rutte, the NATO chief, who is your friend, he called you daddy earlier. Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? No? He did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Do you regard your NATO allies, though, as kind of like children? And
You guys heard the clip. Nothing about that was him referring to him as daddy. Now you're setting up this weird thing where Trump is going to what? Like pretend to be something he's not, and you're doing this weird... Again, the media is complicit in setting up the stage. They are part of the script. Their job is to go in and try to guide the script. They're like the people off stage that are in the wings, where if you forget your line, they'll tell you what your line is. And the line is supposed to be, Trump, you're supposed to tell people that you're Europe's daddy. That's what she was hoping to do. What a weird way to waste your only question that you're probably ever going to get to ask to the president of the United States. You're forever going to be Deborah whatever from Sky News who asked the stupid daddy question. Like I said, Fox News actually covered what I think is the real point, which is that the United States came in and said, we spent all the money, so we're going to ask you to compromise and work the way that we want to. You know, like when you meet with someone who has more power or money or wealth, when you meet with someone that you need something from, You accommodate their schedule because you need something from them. Anybody who's ever been in that position, you know what I'm talking about. You make a meeting with somebody who owns a company and you're asking for a job. You make a meeting with somebody who has some sort of power or some sort of authority they can delegate to you. You compromise with them. Like, you are deferential. That is the right answer. And they actually do that for once. They didn't do that with Biden, if we think about it. Not even a little bit. I think they all laughed at him behind his back. So this is the real story, is that NATO finally is looking out there and going, yeah, we're really appreciative that we have this partner that's willing to fund most of the weakness that we have in our budgets, and that basically funds the vast majority of NATO. And so, yeah, they get differential treatment.
They're bending over backwards, really, to accommodate the president in so many ways. They have tried to make this summit really Trump-friendly. They shortened it to only one working meeting, all focused on defense spending. We hear this commitment is coming forward either in the form of a vote or some sort of a statement that will, with the exception of Spain, bring up all of these countries' defense pledges to 5%, which is huge. That was something that the president has been calling for years, and they were pushing back on. Of course, the war in Ukraine has really put Europe in a different posture, and you've seen massive developments and sort of turns in attitude, especially from countries like Germany, in trying to ramp up their defense spending and also make sure that they increase production so that they don't find themselves in a precarious position that this war has really revealed the need for that. So not just shortening the sessions, but also making sure that the joint statement is really focused in on, the core issues here and not getting muddied up in some of the other things that tend to create disputes over joint statements, trying to basically stave off any chance that the president backs away, because they see NATO as critical to their security and the U.S. commitment to NATO as really being the linchpin of that. And also just a lot of happiness to see the president. He looked very happy to greet the other leaders, and he posted on Truth Social that he was excited to see his European friends.
All of that comes after the first Trump administration, where he showed up there and they basically mocked him. And all he did was tell them, like, hey, if you put yourself in the debt of Russia, if you put yourself in an energy crisis where you no longer have any sort of ability to heat your nations, to power the industries of your nations, you're going to be beholden to people that you don't want to be beholden to. You're artificially making yourself weaker because of this BS climate change agenda. And they mocked him and they laughed at him. And round two, they can't do that same thing. And so that's good. I think that's actually good. We did see 4 years of weakness on the world stage. We saw 4 years where world leaders didn't have to take the guy seriously because the guy didn't even know if he was there. And I've got some stuff about the auto pen that we're going to cover down on in just a minute. Before we get there, let's talk about the folks over at Silent. I just got one of their E3 everyday backpacks, which you will see on the screen at the end here. And I'm going to tell you, it is better than I actually thought it was. I actually got to handle it at SHOT Show, which is what you're seeing right out there. It's even better than what I thought. It feels great carrying it, which I'm a backpack guy. I was a ruck guy. I spent 4 years of my life carrying 50 to 120 pounds on my back almost every single day. So when it comes to putting weight in a backpack, that's a big deal to me. If you guys want to make sure that you're protected from governments, whether they be your government or somebody else's, big tech, corporate America, criminals, et cetera, your privacy can be compromised, especially when you go through places like airports, when you go through places like public buses. People can scan the RF and they can access things like your phone and your laptops and your tablets. And if you want those to be protected while you're moving around, you can do so with Silence Faraday products. They block all incoming and outgoing signals, which means you're not going to be compromised. It makes your devices invisible to scammers and to thieves, to criminals, to governments. Anybody that wants to be able to see it, it takes them off the grid. They have backpacks and phone sleeves. They have pants. I've got my phone right now stashed away in my handy. This is a standalone. This is the cheapest product they have that you can get, the most inexpensive, if you will. But if you want to do the right thing, the way that I think is you always buy once, cry once, get an awesome product that does all the things you want. It fits all of my streaming gear plus more. And I think I could actually put a change of clothes in there, and I might even be able to get my gas mask in case we start covering some riots. Go to slnt.com/Kyle, save 15%. You'll get free shipping on qualified orders. 15% is no slouch. These are not cheap products, but they are effective products. You can buy cheaper, they just won't work. And I know that from buying all the cheap Chinesium garbage on Amazon. When I was in the Bureau, we tried them all. They all suck. They all end up not working. These are quality products that are going to be holding up. You can even feel when you get them. They have a durability to them. And I'll do a whole thing on the E3 backpack over on Locals at some point too. We'll probably put something out on Instagram. slnt.com/Kyle. Again, silent with no vowels. Silent.com/Kyle. Go silent. Protect your privacy. Stay ahead of what's coming. Give yourself a little bit of peace of mind when you're out there. I'll tell you all the reasons later why I use them, because I use Faraday stuff way more frequently than I normally would think. And once I got it, I started doing it a lot. So in any case, we're going to keep pressing onward. We're going to talk about what did that meeting actually look like? What did the actual statement sound like from these NATO friends? The friends, what do they say? Again, they laughed at Donald Trump the last time he went out there in the most prominent thing when he told them you need to increase your money, you need to start spending. Today, he went in there like the big man on campus. He went in there with the ability to say, hey, by the way, not only do Americans in general, are we tired of the crap that's going on out here? We don't want to fund your wars, and we could walk away and we don't need you. And that's true. I don't understand the need for NATO. I would actually prefer that Trump actually straight up pulled out of it, but it is a thing that he can use for leverage. And if this is the kind of treatment he's getting, at least we're getting the right scripted response to American strength instead of being lampooned and made fun of the first time or ignored and people just running around like they did with Joe Biden. Here it is, Donald Trump getting a very warm welcome in Brussels.
For too long, one ally, the United States, carried too much of the burden of that commitment. And that changes today. President Trump, dear Donald, you made this change possible. Your leadership on this has already produced $1 trillion in extra spending from European allies since 2016. And the decisions today will produce trillions more for our common defense to make us stronger and fairer by equalizing spending between America and America's allies.
Okay, so that's the Dutchman. His name is Mark Rutte. And of course, you saw him talking and he didn't call Donald Trump daddy. There's always something lost in translation. There's always like some awkwardness whenever you deal with somebody who speaks English as a third or fourth or fifth language. So anyway, that's the right attitude, at least. At least we're getting serious things happening, at least on the world front. That is where I think Donald Trump actually does project very well. The problem is when you get back home and it comes to governing any of our policies here, the bag is mixed. And it seems like because we don't elect a king, we actually do have more king-like powers when it comes to foreign policy under Article 2. But when it comes to like actually doing the hard job of governance, you know, that thing where you might want that choreographed legal dance where maybe the states and the federal government work together under the executive powers and they work together to either not have really, really bad legislative decisions that are illegal, or they work out there to get legislative solutions. That's kind of where you'd want to see that happen. You'd want to see it happen domestically. It doesn't happen nearly enough. Here's an issue. Here's Jerome Powell. And again, this is all theater too. Imagine that this woman is your elected representative. This is Rashida Tlaib, who is, let's call her a 15-watt bulb, incandescent, not LED. If you have a 15-watt bulb, something that barely lights up the fridge in the middle of the night, that's pretty much what she is. She doesn't seem to understand even the question she's asking. I don't know who writes these questions, but it does lead us to the overwhelming, scary understanding that I think folks got when Joe Biden was president. Low-level staffers, just out of college, know almost nothing about the world. These people are scripting the questions. They are doing the research. They are out there writing the script that these political actors go out and play. Jerome Powell looks confused that he's getting such a dumb question. Not a huge fan of this guy either. However, imagine being like a relatively serious person. Even if we disagree, I don't think Jerome Powell is dumb. This woman is, and she's reading questions that someone who's either smarter or thinks they're smarter than her wrote and didn't give her a good brief. And she doesn't have enough time because they literally grab their lines, run out, and then do hearings all day long. We're going to do a mashup of hearings from the left and the right and just how cosplay LARPy this stuff is. It's proving Joe Rogan's point, and I'll just give you this little Venn diagram. This is for Kamala Harris fans. Some of you want to see this Venn diagram, so you're wondering where we are. The white square that you're seeing on the screen right now is all the things, but the majority of what we deal with in politics is either going to be under the pink circle, which is fake, or the bluish circle, which is gay, and then Congress, which is the overlap, is the stuff that's fake and gay. Is that good? That's just for a couple of you out there that really, really needed this. Okay, let's do Jerome Powell being asked some really dumb questions that he can't, like, he looks like he's trying to figure out why this woman was elected as well.
Like, you guys use these terminology. What is that? How do I communicate that to the public? What is the difference between supply-driven versus demand-driven rent?
You know, those are not terms that we use particularly often.
What's supply-driven formula?
That would mean that there's not enough supply to meet demand, but at the same time, it also means there's more demand than there is supply.
So, are you guys ignoring that?
No, but as I said again, our policies will not affect in the long run. No, I'm being
either
serious,
demand
I see
or
supply in housing.
I'm being serious, y'all. We're talking about a housing crisis that is getting worse right now because we're not paying attention to future instability that the current rates, and you can raise your eyebrows and all this stuff behind. I don't know. I mean, do you understand? Like, I come from a community right now that I believe is now being impacted by the current framework that you're putting together, that I do feel like it's going to be long-term effects on the housing crisis, and you're ignoring it.
No, we're not, actually. We think the very best thing we can do is to fully restore price stability at the aggregate level. That will be the best thing for homeowners and for home builders and everybody else. That's in the long run, that is the single thing that Congress has assigned us to do.
But you see where I'm coming from.
You see where she's coming from. What she's trying to say is, isn't aggregate the thing that they use to make countertops if you want to have like a polished stone? Aggregate? That's granite? We're getting word that that's actually granite. I'm being serious, she said. They're not serious. By the way, all of these things are silly. Why are we having, is she using, this is the question. This is the real question, okay? Because if this was a serious system, the entire purpose of that hearing would be to educate her vote so that she could walk out and go, okay, what is it that you guys are doing? What is the policy? How do you enact it? What sort of principles, what sort of data are you using to drive your decisions? What do you need from us in order to accomplish that? And do we agree with that? Can we shape some of this? Can we have a meeting after the fact? Blah, blah, blah. What is the purpose of that hearing? Is it to inform her so that she can better vote on something? Or is it this bullshit kayfabe scripted dance where she says things that she doesn't understand, exposes herself as being a complete dummy, and then hopes that there's like a sliver in there that she can send out as a fundraiser? Bernie Sanders, like, she's part of the commie left. She's part of the left that also is like the grandfather of that group, or the great-grandfather, or maybe the great-great-grandfather at this point. This guy is old as the Crypt Keeper. Bernie Sanders, who is my favorite. He goes on Joe Rogan, and he can't even brush his hair because it's very, very warm in Austin, which made him know that there was climate change. This is a little exchange he had. This is another Joe Rogan clip. This is the only other one I have. But Bernie just flew to Austin. He also didn't call me. Kash Patel didn't call me, but Bernie didn't call me. I'm very disappointed. Showed up without his hair brushed. He tries to look like Doc Brown without, you know what? We need to do a mashup. Somebody, one of you is more talented than me, should put together the mashup of Doc Brown, right? Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future, and Bernie Sanders. I want to hear Bernie Sanders say, "Great Scott," or something to that effect, and let us know if there's some overlap, because was Doc Brown actually the kooky Bernie Sanders character from back then? Anyway, here's a U.S. senator who's been a senator for a very long time. He's a multi-millionaire, but he's not a billionaire. He's not part of the oligarchy, even though he flies in private jets to go places, looking like a homeless bum, hanging out with Joe Rogan, who is allowed to look like a homeless bum because he's not in government. And they're talking about the really serious problems. We just heard about housing. How about climate change? It's pretty freaking hot in Texas right now, so I could see why you'd be focused on that.
You got to deal with this climate change issue. And I know that, there are some people who think climate change is a hoax. It ain't a hoax. I think the last 10 years have been the warmest on record. And we can create millions of good-paying jobs transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency, to solar, to wind, and other sustainable energies.
I think the climate change issue is very complicated. And I think, did you see the Washington Post piece that they wrote, where they did this long-term view? First of all, the reality is that the Earth's temperature has never been static, right? We both agree on that. It's always been up and down. There's been ice ages and heat waves. And then the Washington Post looked at it. What was the time period that they looked at? That essentially they found that we're in a cooling period. That the Earth over the past X amount of years, and this was like a very inconvenient discovery, but they had to report the data, and kudos to them for doing that. Scientists have captured the Earth's climate change over the last 485 million years. Here's a surprising place we stand now. So look at the far end of that graph, and you see we're in a cooling period.
Well, I'm not sure. I didn't read that article, but the scientists who are out there, I think.
I know, but there's a lot of money involved in that too, Bernie. That's part of the problem. There's a lot of money involved in this whole climate change emergency issue, and there's a lot of control, and that's a big part of this problem.
Well, I'm not that sure, but I didn't read the article. I don't actually know what it is that I'm disagreeing with, but on principle, I must disagree with you. Because it totally destroys my point, which is that Marxism, socialism, democratically elected socialism, that's the right way. It's like you already know the answer, and the answer is really bad, and then the answer is like this novel interpretation of something that's never actually worked. You're just playing a role. How is it that he's still playing that role? You ever see somebody that's like playing a role for too long? Like they're the tough guy when they're younger and they don't transition into being like some sort of like interesting has-been figure? At least Clint Eastwood knew that he was like a tough guy when he was young, and then when he got older, he was like a grumpy old guy that used to be a tough guy, but he had like one or two good licks in him still. You're supposed to know when that time changes. It doesn't seem like they do at all. The Marxism thing, we've moved on from real Marxism. Now we are doing race-based Marxism. That's been the push. That's why Rashida Tlaib is out there. That's what the Squad represents. The aggrieved peoples, the people who have slightly different skin color. I got a really good one from a sort of semi-Squad member, Jamal Bowman, who's no longer in Congress. He is putting on weight, kind of like AOC. But I didn't realize why he was putting on the weight. And he was putting on the weight because of the problem that we have to deal with. It's not just the millionaires and the billionaires out there he's actually dealing with racism every single day. So you'd think that Democrats would care about racism. That seems to be a thing they talk about a whole lot. Wouldn't they want to eliminate it? Wouldn't they want to have a race-blind, colorblind society? You can't really get a straight answer on that either. This is Brandon Gill, newly elected congressman from Texas. Brandon's a really nice guy. I got to work with him on the set of Police State. He's very bright. He actually got, I think, his acting debut on the movie Police State, and now he does acting in Congress. Look, nothing against the guy. That's just what the job is right now. You elect these people to go out and do cool sound bites. He's doing a good job in his role. I just wish that role didn't involve like this silly theatrical nonsense. I wish it involved actually, legislating and not talking to some gayish looking Dr. Harper who decided to wear all white. It's not after Labor Day. I guess he's allowed to wear all white during the summer. This is just a ridiculous exchange. Someone who tells you the problem is racism, but the answer is racism. It's bad Lifetime movies where you watch it and you're like, none of this is reason. I don't even accept the premise of this show. We're all there now. And luckily more Americans are paying attention probably than ever before. The problem is that the really dumb people who just got online are voting, like really young people. They're voting for the same dumb stuff because this is the first time they've ever seen this movie.
Do you believe that America should be a colorblind society? For instance, should people be treated differently based on their race? It's just a yes or no question.
It's not a yes or no question.
It's a yes or no question.
It is as I said in the beginning of my testimony, America
yes or
has
no
not done right by indigenous peoples, by black people, by Asian American and Pacific Islander people.
Should people be treated differently based on their race? Yes or no?
People should receive the services and the support and the remedies that are
your answer
owed to
is
them.
That they should be treated differently based on their race.
They should receive the remedies that are owed to them because of the systemic racism and injustice.
Do you believe that race should be considered in employer hiring practices?
I do not believe that white people are the only qualified people for jobs.
I didn't say that. Nobody said that. I asked you if race should be considered in employer hiring practices. And you're not going to intimidate me by slandering me as a racist.
You're also, I did not call you a racist. No, you're not going to intimidate me by insisting that I called you a racist.
Straightforward question. It's a yes or no question. Should race be considered in employer hiring practices? Yes or no?
I believe that diversity ought to be considered as companies and other organizations attempt to reflect their customers, our country.
I'll take that as a yes. Which race do you think should be preferred?
I do not think that a single race should be preferred.
You just said that you believe that race should be considered in employer hiring practices.
I don't know. There's going to be a transcript of this hearing. I didn't say that in that way.
Okay, why don't you explain what you believe?
What I said and what I believe is that the demographic composition of workplaces,
which
our nation's military,
and so on,
our Congress ought to reflect the diversity of the United States of America.
Demographic composition, racial demographic. Is that what you're saying?
Racial, gender.
Okay, so race should be a factor in employer hiring practices. Yeah, that's what you're saying, is it not?
Organizations ought to attempt to match the diversity of their...
hopping around.
The real question, which I wish Brandon would ask, is why? That assumes something that I don't understand. Why? What's the relevance of skin color if skin color actually isn't relevant when it comes to character or capabilities? And it's not. I have some very, very competent in very different fields people who have different skin colors than me. It has zero bearing on whether or not I will be friends with someone, whether or not I would hire them to do a job, whether or not I would trust them with all kinds of things that are important. Some of the most competent military operators I know, dark skin, Hispanic, black, doesn't matter, Asian. You can be a stud in any color shade, it turns out. But the one thing that I do share with them is culture, values, competencies. I like that. I looked this guy up because I wanted to know. I was like, he's a doctor. A doctor of what? That's Dr. Shaun, S-H-A-U-N, Harper. He's born in 1975, so he's roughly in the same age bracket as I am. And so that means he also lived through a world that didn't have flippin' racism when he was younger. In fact, he probably saw even less of it as a young person than I did. I had to imagine. This guy came of age in the 80s and was a young adult when I was in high school in the 90s. Which was an idyllic time, a time that was dominated by not black family TV shows, just family TV shows that also featured a ton of black people. I want you to go back into the 80s and into the 90s and have me, if you guys want to start a list, we should do it. Every single family sitcom, every single network television show that you sat down in, I'll bet you it was 2-1 featured a prominent, well-focused, values-based black family. It doesn't matter whether it was Family Matters, where the whole point was dad went out and went to work, right? Kept packed with his kids, had time with them, tried to shape their values. There was always a moral at the end of all these stories, hanging with Mr. Cooper, Sister, Moesha. Like, I could go through the whole list of them. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. What was that about? Kid was in a bad situation in a crap neighborhood, went to a functional, non-dysfunctional family where mom and dad still lived together and they had money because of it. And they were able to work and be educated because they cared about things like going to school. Like, I'm just saying, this was prominent in this guy's life. And he got a flippin' PhD. Yes, The Cosby Show. There's a ton of them. There's a great ton of examples. I'm seeing you guys in the chat getting after it. 100%. This guy is, quote unquote, an American scholar. On what? On a grievance culture, the Marxism, not climate change Marxism, but diversity and equity and inclusion. I shit you not. Excuse my language. He is the provost professor of the Rossier School of Education, Marshall School of Business, and Price School of Public Policy at the University of Southern California. He's been in education his entire life. Since I graduated high school, he's been working in higher education. He's never had what I would refer to as a real job where results actually matter. It's all research-based. And his subject matter expertise are race and racism, racial equity, gender equity, higher education, DEI, and business. And then someone also threw in there on another thing I saw, a side piece about college sports. So since we're talking about college sports and the confusion that exists there, I've got another one of these KFOB hearings, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. This is Ted Cruz asking, here's the thing, when these guys do the yes or no question, they're almost always doing a gotcha. It doesn't matter who's doing it. Brandon Gill does a gotcha. Ted Cruz does a gotcha. The people on the left do the gotchas. The people on the left do the worst possible gotchas. I feel like they actually are dumber. There is a little bit more sophistication. In other words, the writers for the people on the political right seem smarter to me. Maybe it's because I'm more ideologically aligned. I'll admit there's probably a confirmation bias piece to that. But this actually is a yes or no question. Like, it's a yes or no question. Do you think the United States should be colorblind? The answer is yes, I do. Should racial background, heritage, skin color be a factor in employment and selection? The answer is no. It's a yes or no question. No, it should not. In fact, federal law actually forbids it, except when it allows it for some reason. This is a lady who's also very educated, and she can't answer the yes or no question that you'd think would be the simplest of all. The reason why they are there, which is discussing women's sports. This is a Riley Gaines versus some lady. I didn't even catch her name. She has dreadlocks. She's a black female something or other scholar. She's the expert of the day. It turns out these experts almost always have zero expertise. That's the other funny thing about the KFOB, about the way this stuff is scripted. Remember, to be an actor, to play a Navy SEAL, you don't have to have been a Navy SEAL. To be a lawyer on television, you don't actually have to be a lawyer. To play a gay person on television, you oftentimes must be a gay person. And God forbid you put a transgender person or a transgender role that doesn't include a transgender actual person. Go and check me on that. Fact check me and find me someone that plays a transgender person that is not actually, in fact, a transgender person in reality. The left is really funny about the way they script it. Maybe that's because there's better actors that understand that, you're probably not going to get real Navy SEALs to go and be on television. Not very often. Not that Navy SEALs wouldn't do it. You guys know what I'm talking about if you know what I'm talking about. All right, anyway, let's enjoy this lady and her difficulty answering that simple question, what is a woman? Do we think that women should have their own sports? Should we even be having this hearing?
Ms. Robinson, do you agree with Ms. Gaines that there's a difference between women and men?
If the question is about trans women...
I'm just asking, is there a difference between women and men?
What I can say here is that the NCAA has rules in place. They've had rules in place for the last decade, and when this competition happened,
I'm going to try again.
The rules were clear.
Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? It's a yes-no question. Do you believe there's a difference?
Oh, I think that we're talking about this case with the NCAA.
No, I'm asking a question. Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? Most people could answer this very simply. I'm curious if you're willing to do so.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just putting it into the context of the conversation that we're having. I think that there are definitions related to sex.
Is that a yes? So I'm trying to get a yes or no. I'm not trying to get a speech. Is there a difference between women and men?
I think that there are definitions for biological sex.
Okay, so you're not answering that. Let me ask you this question then. Why do women's sports exist? If you can't define a difference between women and men, why not abolish women's sports and just tell little girls to swim with little boys and see who wins?
Oh, I'm simply saying that that sex is different than gender.
Why
and I do believe that women's sports have a great
exist?
value. I mean, Senator, I'll tell you right
Ms.
now.
Robinson.
It's so cringeworthy. This should be such a simple question. Anybody who has kids, like this is the other problem with libs. People on the left that don't want to have children, that don't value children. They don't actually have the real experience. I have a 4-year-old son right now whose favorite thing to do is to wait till you're not looking and run at you as hard as he can and run his face or his forehead into your butt or into your hip and try to knock you over like a tiny little goofy bull. And then I also have a 2-year-old daughter whose favorite thing to do is to run up and insist that you give her a hug and a kiss and then keep doing that because she wants that. I've got 2 bigger girls that want to go and sit on the swings all day. And I've got a 4-year-old boy who wants to climb on the swing set and see if he can fall off and break his skull. It's so simple. Go watch boys and girls play. At some point in time, at its very, very young, they deviate. One of them wants to draw and create and do things that are nice. And one of them wants to cut up the drawings and see how much confetti they can make and throw it into your coffee. This is not complicated. If you have kids, it actually educates you. If you think that kids are not of value, if you think families are not of value, then you don't actually know about the fundamental reality you're living in. Go figure. I love it. By the way, hold on. We have to put this on the screen here. We got ag cowboys out there saying, holy shit, Kyle, my 4-year-old does the same thing. I don't know where boys learn that their head is actually a ramming tool, but it is a ramming tool. It is a ramming tool that they will use. It's charming right up until you get hit while you're trying to do something or you're holding a cup of coffee and you spill it all over yourself because you're going to sacrifice your own body or your own outfit so that your kid doesn't get, burned. It's a real thing. Speaking of burns, speaking of coffee, let's just do it here. Talk about my friends over at Blackout. We're going to tell you, if you have not tried Blackout Coffee, you are missing out on a high quality product. Look, if you're a parent and you're like me and you don't spend a lot of money on things like travel or other like crazy luxury items, you get one luxury every morning. And that's that few minutes of silence between the time that you wake up and then your kids get up and start doing whatever it is that they're doing. I love them to death. I want them to do the thing they're doing. But God, there's like 20 minutes where it's just me and my wife kind of groggy, hitting the grinder, making the coffee. If you want that moment, and you want something that you want to just really enjoy, check out my friends over at Blackout. It's blackoutcoffee.com/Kyle. Blackoutcoffee.com/Kyle. That promo code Kyle will save you 20% on your first order. They're an American company. They believe in the same things we do. They work hard. They built up a company from basically nothing out of a garage. Now they're working in a big warehouse. You know, they're grinding all their own beans. They're vertically integrated with that piece there. They employ their own company, you know, their own people. They're packing themselves. Some people, by the way, a lot of people will actually just white label. They'll get somebody else's coffee. They'll put their name on it. They'll make a cool name for it and they send it out there. These guys are building the whole thing up. They've got it all on their own. Check it out. It's a good product. It's not the cheapest product in the world. You know, you pay for quality. You pay for American. You pay for things that have your own values, support companies that you believe in. That's the way we're doing it here. Again, blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE. I've literally got about 13 pounds of Blackout coffee. Plus I have probably another dozen or 2 dozen of their individual freeze-dried stuff. So you can get instant coffee if you're in that thing. Check them out because use that little moment of peace you have for that luxury. If you want a little micro vacation from your life, you could do it by just kind of sitting, smelling the warm aroma, taking in some coffee, hanging out there with your spouse. And then, you know, then the reality starts. Then your kid headbutts you. Then your kids start trying to fall off things and get hurt. Blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE, 20% off. That's a solid thing. Once you guys find out what you like, if you're a flavored person, don't talk to me about flavors. But if you're, you know, you find out what sort of variety, whether you're a dark or not, we're a pitch dark espresso roast family. Find out what you're into, get all those things going, and then you can set up a subscription if you want to continue getting that discount. But you can try different things with our name. Again, KYLE saves you 20% on that. I have more fun things and more, dare we say, absolutely retarded statements. Again, that woman couldn't break down men and women. We know that they can't understand whether or not they want a colorblind society. If you want the fullest version of retarded, you've got to go to the Squad, which means you got to go to CNN, which means you got to hear from this guy who is no longer in office. Poor guy. I had no idea, and I just want to make sure that we are all apologizing to all the black people out there that are carrying the weight of other black people calling them the N-word because it's giving them heart disease and making them obese. You heard it here probably first. If you watch CNN, you're hearing it here second. I kid you not. Former congressman, former educator, PhD, Jamal Bowman is heavyset and faces health problems because of the N-word. And as a grown-up who lived through the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s and have seen tens of thousands of people interacting and lots of folks in public, I used to actually watch people in public for a living without them knowing. I don't think I've ever heard a white person use the N-word. I don't think I've ever heard an Asian person use the N-word. I don't think I've ever heard anyone use the N-word outside of like a rap song unless they were black. So here's Jamal Bowman saying that it's black people's fault that there are all these health problems on black people, but he blames white people anyway because it's bad scripted KFOB and it's all theater. Again, hold on. Where's our little thing here? It's basically that. It's all fake and it's all gay. Tell me I'm wrong.
Catholic pro-life ministries bombed. We are not dealing with America's original sin and its disease of hate and racism towards black and brown people and sexism towards women and anti-LGBTQ sentiment. We are not dealing with that. Your colleagues in the Republican Party do not hold each other accountable when it comes to the racism that comes from the party on a consistent basis.
Congressman, I mean, where are you on?
You can't be calm about this. I'm a black man in America. The reason why heart disease...
I'm white, I can't comment.
Listen to what I'm saying. The reason why heart disease and cancer and obesity and diabetes are bigger in the black community is because of the stress we carry from having to deal with being called the N-word directly or indirectly every day. If your colleagues would listen and try to learn and engage and grow and stop being so hateful, we could have a better country.
Jamal,
but unfortunately, we're still here.
Jamal,
the hate's coming from one side.
Jamal, I feel your passion, and I understand where you're coming from, sincerely. I really
want to placate you and say some things, but you should see my Twitter feed. It's very mean. Nope. It's just fake and gay. Why would you even be remotely nice to that clown show who just told you something that you know from your own life experience is not true? Kind of like watching that bad Lifetime movie and you're like, dude, are you serious? Like, that lady is not leaving that man. She's going to go into the house where the guy is. That, like, she saw a kicked open front door and she's all by herself in the dark and she decided to what? Go check it out. She wants to go and see whether or not it's safe. She's going to make that terrible decision. She's going to creep into her own home and find out if she can get attacked and beat up because she doesn't understand reality. Kind of like this lady in New York who got stalked on the train. What did this lady do? She did the reality thing. We're transitioning to New York, folks. It's coming. She did the thing that normal people would do. She was like, hey, there was this dude. He was following me. And I decided that I didn't want to get, like, I don't know, raped, murdered, dragged off by my hair, taken into a bathroom and beaten for no particular reason. Experience whatever mental illness this dude was going to carry out on me because she's a pretty white lady, like riding the subway. So she did what people do. She went to a more lit stop. Then she jumped off. Then she did like a Jason Bourne. You'll hear. Anyway, my point to you is your reality is that nobody runs around yelling the N-word at black people anywhere that you live. I can basically guarantee it. Even if you live at Waffle House, that's not the case. It's only coming from one side. And that was actually snuck into that little CNN clip kind of quietly. Here we go.
I don't even know what to say at this point. I had to get off the train past my stop because there was a guy who was following me from car to car. And when I tried to get off at my stop, which was pitch dark, he held it open to see if I was going to get off. So I had to get off the stop after. And then when I got off the stop after, I hopped on the next train that was going the other direction. And I got on an express train. And now I'm back on the other side of the tracks. Hold on. New York City is not safe. It's not safe for women. Okay? I am so sick and tired of having to look over my shoulder 24/7, not just at night, during the day, at all hours. I'm sick and tired of it. I don't even know what to say at this point.
She's sick and tired of it. So luckily, New Yorkers took it upon themselves to fix this problem. They said, the city is not safe. Women are threatened. Black people are not being treated well. We can't do things. So let's get a socialist that wants to do things that have never been tried before, like government running things. They now want to shop at the DMV with the customer service of the IRS. They voted for a socialist. Here's how they responded when they found out that their guy just won the Democratic primary, which doesn't make him a shoe-in perfectly, but damn it, it gets really close. Here it is. This is because Zoran Mamdani won. New York socialists, this is their reaction. Yay. Oh, boy. Oh, we won. We won. Oh, my goodness. So good. Look at us. Look at us winning. Wow. Okay. Well, if you're not excited too, you're probably a jerk and racist. This is a guy that I like to listen to. I like to listen to New Yorkers who are not in New York anymore that talk about New York and know it, but know why they left too. What I don't like are New Yorkers that moved to Florida, which is all of you, and then you just like talk about how great New York is. I may or may not have people like that in my family. My wife's family. It's the people that gather this. This clip I'm grabbing on the fly, so I'm probably gonna have to resize it real quick. But this is John Macari. He's a former cop, NYPD. I didn't realize he was such a big dude, shaved head. He's standing in his closet putting on a shirt for some reason. So for those of you who are watching, I don't know why he's shirtless, but he is talking about the thing that was predicted. He actually even got it wrong. We all thought that guy was probably a cartoon type character. New Yorkers proved to us that they want cartoons to run the store. They want more kayfabe theater, bad scripted nonsense. So they decided to elect a 33-year-old with no experience in working or running anything whatsoever, a nepotistic sort of job history, a degree in Africana studies from a liberal arts college in Maine, who didn't grow up in the United States, who was born in Uganda and then raised partially in South Africa, who's been a citizen for 7 years, whose mom is Indian, whose dad is like a Muslim from Africa, and he's a socialist, anti-Semite, from the river to the sea type guy. hey, let him cook, I think. Anyway, here's John kind of giving the take on how that's going to work out. I'll have to resize it. Stand by.
So I told you Zohran Mamdani's going to win the Democratic primary. See, and I was wrong. I thought Zohran Mamdani was going to win the Democratic primary because I thought that ranked choice voting was going to push him ahead. Because even I got gaslit by the mainstream media and the legacy media, the Fox News, New York Post, all the polls, they're all bullshit. Because guess what? Ranked choice voting didn't matter. Zohran Mamdani beat Cuomo handily, straight up. So now, those same people that told you that Cuomo was unbeatable, what are they telling you? You need to run Eric Adams. He's going to be a savior. Like I told you 3 months ago. Like I told you was going to happen 3 months ago. Yeah, is Eric Adams celebrating last night? Yeah, because it keeps him alive in the game, right?
It's almost like it's all scripted. Here's Fox News covering this thing, and they're talking about, like I said, 33-year-old African-born socialist going to step in and run America's most premier city. Why the hell not?
We have won because New Yorkers have stood up for a city they can afford. A city where they can do more than just struggle. And it's where the mayor will use their power to reject Donald Trump's fascism, to stop mass ICE agents from deporting our neighbors, and to govern our city as a model for the Democratic Party.
You got to deal with this climate change issue. And I know that, there are some people who think climate change is a hoax. It ain't a hoax.
Oh, man, I hope he deals with climate change, too, in New York. I hope that's what is also on his agenda, because if it's not, you've got to deal with that climate thing. So then your question is Eric Adams also now still back in the contention? Can he run as like an independent? Do you got to run him out to save the city because you're not going to get it? Here's your options. You're Republican. Is Curtis Sliwa. I'll play a little bit from him. Or you could be Fox News, and you could bring out the big guns. Here's Mayor Eric Adams, because he, as John just said, might be the alternative.
Mr. Mayor, it's not just defund the police. This candidate, Democratic Socialist, he wants to freeze the rent. He wants city-run grocery stores, social workers to replace the police because that's going to help. He wants $60 billion of debt fund for affordable housing. He wants free buses, no cost for childcare, baby baskets for newborn, and a $30 minimum wage. How can someone vote for this?
He's a snake oil salesman. Mm-hmm. He will say and do anything to get elected. Think about this for a moment. He wants to raise 1%. He wants to raise tax on 1% of New Yorkers' high-income earners. As the mayor, you don't have the authority to do that. You know who has the authority to do that? An assemblyman, which he is. He wants to do free buses. He could have done it at assemblyman. He doesn't understand the power of government and how you must making sure you improve your economy, raise the standard of living. And this is what we've done in the city. And I'm looking forward to being...
Wait, what? Didn't you just say that all those things actually sit in the state assembly, which is probably true? Why is the mayor able to do any of the things that you just said? So Eric Adams is out there splitting the vote. He's going to split the vote with this man, and then you're going to end up with a Democratic Socialist, African-born, Ugandan tard who's 33 years old, running America's biggest city and where all the major financial things are. There's going to be a predictable result of that too, and Florida is about to get a population boon. We'll play that in a second. But first, let's do what the alternative is. This is the Republican option. And who knew that this guy would sound the most reasonable? People have kind of like gone back and forth with him. He always I don't disagree with a lot of the things that Curtis Sliwa says. I know some of the personal details about his life because we have this weird family connection on my wife's side to him and his baby mama. But in any case, here he is. So he's on CNN. So CNN, grabbing that independent grab. So why is the Democrat mayor showing up on Fox and the Republican candidate showing up on CNN? Feels scripted. It feels fake.
Elected. If we can pull up some of his proposals here. You got freeze the rent, city-run grocery stores, $70 billion worth of debt to fund affordable housing, free buses, no-cost childcare, baby baskets to newborns, $30 minimum wage, a few more not on this list here, defund NYPD, defund prisons, defund medical bills, and get rid of private insurance. Your thoughts?
But in typical political fashion, do as I say, not as I do.
He claims he's under threat, right? So who's protecting him now? Off-duty NYPD armed officers. Who does he want protecting New Yorkers? Social workers. Yeah. Hey, Mamdani, do what you suggest everybody do. Why isn't he being protected by social workers? I'm a guy who was shot 5 times by the Gattis and Gambinos in 1992. I travel by myself. I'm in the streets. I'm in the subways. I'm the people's mayor. You have to have a feel. You know, I hate to break the baby boomers' bubble, because I'm a baby boomer. The millennials are the majority now. Do the analytics. You must get millennials on your side to win elections. I've been working with young people my whole life as leader of the Guardian Angels here and in 13 countries and 130 cities around the world. You need to be able to motivate people. Look, fault him as you will. You keep throwing stuff at him, you just strengthen him with millennials. We have to bring the millennials to us. Wasn't Trump able to do that with male millennials? Yep. And that probably was part of his pathway to victory. We have to start doing that now in New York City, and I'm the only one to do that. We're in this mess now. Why? Because Eric Adams failed as a mayor.
Okay. Sorry, that was actually on Fox too, so that was both Fox. Sliwa's got some great points. He also kind of has a face that reminds me of like a OG Batman Joker, right? He looks like Jack, and he's got the beret on. It's a different color beret, but I kind of want him to do like Joker stuff. Anyway, Joker before he fell into the pit. And I don't mean that as a dig. I'd like Jack was a handsome man. He's making a lot of sense there. Do you know why millennials don't vote the way that they ought to at this age bracket? Because like technically I think I'm in the millennial age bracket. I'm like the oldest millennial. I think I'm the oldest millennial possible kind of thing, like within a few months. I associate more with my Gen X friends. Why is that? Because I didn't take that millennial bait and decide not to have babies. I've got 4 brothers and a sister. 3 of my brothers and my sister have no kids. None. My oldest brother's got 10 years on me, and he has 2. You see, if you don't have children, you don't have skin in the game, and I'm not saying this to offend you. I'm saying it changes your mentality, as I mentioned earlier. It helps you know the difference between boys and girls. Now, you could have grown up knowing that difference. Many of you probably did. Even if you're older than me and you don't have kids, you know what men and women are. It's not confusing to you. You saw what race is and what race is not. Or you could be completely confused about all the basic things of reality, and you're living in this like la-la land. You're a grown-up Peter Pan, and you're my age. And you still got nothing. You're like, what skin do you have in the game? What do you, like, you don't necessarily understand things that way. You've never had to claim married on your taxes. Seeing what that does. The one thing that made me more successful than anything else was probably getting married and having responsibilities, like a bunch of kids that depend on me so that I can't screw it up. Anyway, that's the real answer. There's a cultural piece there. But Carter Sliwa, that's the alternative. What's going to be the end result of all of this? Population boom pending. Ron DeSantis on what's coming down the pipe for Florida. It's not just going to be a new Gator Alcatraz or what do they call it? Gator Trap? I'll get that. I have an article about that too. But let's do Ron DeSantis talking about what he expects will happen when they decide to do completely illogical things that, by the way, they have been tried, not just in the Soviet Union, but like also in like Chicago and San Francisco and Los Angeles. They tried a lot of this dumb stuff. It just doesn't work.
People were fleeing Chicago, going places like Naples. And then they elected the guy they have now who's even worse. And so you've seen even a bigger reaction. And I kind of feel like New York's doing that. De Blasio caused a lot of people to flee that city. And I saw it firsthand with the amount of wealth that moved into Florida and the businesses. And so now they're in a situation where this guy that they just nominated, he will be worse than de Blasio. He wants to eliminate the NYPD. I'll tell you what, when NYPD officers move to Florida and they work for our law enforcement, we give them a $5,000 signing bonus. We believe in law enforcement in Florida. He wants to take over grocery stores and have government run the grocery stores. Can you imagine the disaster that will be? He wants to eliminate cash bail. So his ideas, first of all, a lot of them have been tried in places like San Francisco, and they have failed miserably. To the extent he's got these far left ideas that have not yet been implemented, I guarantee you it will be disastrous. And so, look, I'm not asking for anyone to come to Florida. We've got 23.5 million people, Laura. Yeah, New York only has 19.5 million now. So we have way more people than they do. And this is likely just going to dig that hole even deeper for them.
Your 7-figure net worth, your 8 and your 9 and your 10-figure net worth people are going to relocate out, just like a lot of them have been doing. They left Chicago. They left their businesses there. They moved them and re-headquartered them out in Florida. They may still do business in places, but nobody wants to live where they're going to get taxed at a higher rate than they already are. And a thing that America can't even do. The one thing that they didn't mention trying, because this is more exciting KFOB, and I want you guys to understand this. The one thing that he said, like the Bad Idea Theater, which happens in Portland and Chicago, and it happens in San Francisco, and it happens in Illinois and Chicago, and so on, right? Minneapolis has been doing some bad stuff and stupidity. The one thing I didn't hear was call on criminals to protect illegal alien criminals from federal law enforcement. I haven't heard that call. You've got to go to the special version of crazy. You have to go out to the left coast, right? The granola state. I remember when I was a kid, people were like, you're born in California. It's the land of nuts, fruits, and flakes. You tell me, is this woman a nut, a fruit, a flake? What is this lady? If you elect this person as your vice mayor, and she, just even the fact that she talks like this, there should be an audio sample along every single person on the ballot. If you don't know what they sound like, how on earth did they elect this lady? She's calling for gang members to step up, the cholos to resist federal law enforcement. I do really think this could be fun. So the city, by the way, did not deny it. I'll play you the city statement in a second. This lady is the vice mayor of some little useless town in California. Tell me that we're not captured with this stuff.
Not for nothing, but I want to know where all the cholos are at in Los Angeles. 18th Street, Florencia. Where's the leadership at? Because you guys are all about territory, and this is 18th Street, and this is Florencia. You guys tag everything up, claiming hood. And now that your hood's being invaded by the biggest gang there is, there ain't a peep out of you. It's everyone else who's not about the gang life that's out there protesting and speaking up. We're out there like fighting our turf, protecting our people. And like, where you at? Bien calladitos, todos los chulitos. I'm like, dude, they're running amok all up on your streets and in your city. And peep, when the big gang guns come in, nothing but like quiet, and we're out here, the regular ones that have never been jumped in, out here calling things out trying to organize people, trying to do the thing. So don't be trying to claim no block, no nothing if you're not showing up right now, trying to.
I'm serious. Somebody elected that person. California. Y'all, if you live in California, you know that lady could be on your city council. She could be your vice mayor. She could win an election just based on last name alone. What an absolute nightmare stupidity. And and that voice, that like this just sounded like this. I flipping hate it. If anybody ever walks up, I've committed to this in my heart. When people come up, like when women come up and up talk to me, if you up talk in a Hispanic accent of some kind, a Mexican accent, I'm going to do an about face and just walk away. You can talk to nobody because you can't talk to me like that. I'm not going to listen to it. But I will play it for you on the podcast because it's hilarious. Here's the city's response. God forbid they upset a Hispanic lady. So they're just going to say, everyone's entitled to a personal opinion because the First Amendment. Why does it not play? Play the clips.
Dr. Human, is this the city of Cudahy released a statement? They said, quoting, the city of Cudahy is aware of recent comments made by Vice Mayor Cynthia Gonzalez on social media. The comments made by the Vice Mayor reflect her personal views and do not represent the views of official position of the city of Cudahy. The city will not be providing further comment. I know she called out the gangs. I know she's the Vice Mayor, but it's just that's her own opinion.
It is her own
opinion.
opinion.
Come on.
Nonsense, Trace. You know that. Everyone knows that. Nonsense. The fact they have a moral duty as a city to condemn that language. They need to protect federal law enforcement. Right. They need to restore order to their city, not be encouraging this, or their silence on this issue is an implicit endorsement of her comments, and they know it, right? The fact that they didn't come out to say something against it explicitly means that they're on her side, but they just don't want to overtly say it because they know the consequences. These people are all in bed together, and it's horrific.
It really.
When you say they're all in bed together, it almost sounds like you think that this is a scripted drama and we're just watching it unfold in front of us, that there's legal choreography or that there's people allowed to say certain things that you know that you might get away with or they can get away with, but you wouldn't, like it's all fake. It's all sort of gay. That's the overlap right there, that sort of political thing. I think this is actually where the Kyle Seraphin show lives, is reporting on the overlap of fake and gay. Maybe we can get into the white circle a little bit later. I do have one more great example to you. I wouldn't just leave Hispanic up-talking women. I wanted to show you what the government, and particularly the witnesses, this is another Brandon Gill clip, but more importantly, I want you to listen to the woman speaking. I looked her up. This young lady is the epitome. She is peak government at every level. The most average government worker is a black female between the ages of like 40 and 65. That's been my experience. I think if you talk to people that work in federal government, particularly in the Washington, D.C. area, you'll find that. They almost always have a high school education. They're generally polite, nice people. They show up and do very little because they're not hired for a skill set. They don't actually have a job to do. The federal government hires as a jobs program. I'm totally against it. It's why there's so much bloat. But that woman, everyone's met her. She has a space heater underneath her desk. She sits there and watches television for some reason because there's a TV in her office. She has to be thanked profusely for actually doing her job. She has a blanket on her lap. She eats lunch at her desk. If you bother her during her lunch break, she will not speak to you. Okay? That woman is ubiquitous. She's in every single thing. But the second most common and maybe and clearly more irritating human being that works for the federal government is the woman I'm about to show you. Her name is, I think, Emily DeVito. She's a self-proclaimed expert. She has less than 9 years of work experience, as I was able to calculate it from her LinkedIn resume. She has 9 years, and she is an expert on government economic policy. Probably the single most complicated and ridiculously complex system that exists in the history of the world. United States government dollars. This woman is an expert, and she looks exactly like my first boss. She looks exactly like FBI agents. Generally speaking, they are analysts who became agents. They all look like this. They have mousy little glasses. They have clean-cut little hair. They all went to some advanced degree-generating schools. They all have hard left ideas. They all dominate. They're mousy-looking little women that dominate. They're effeminate men that they married, and they make these cities elect freaking 33-year-old socialists, communists, African anti-Semite Sharia law advocates. This woman, without knowing her, I know how she votes. I know all the things about her, and I could do it from looking at her face and listening to her voice, and so can you. And even if you're just listening to the audio, you're going to cringe. This is a lady that you should do an about face and walk directly away from. I'm going to subject you to it anyway. Here we go.
Do you support abolishing the filibuster still?
I am here to talk about Doge respectfully.
Right. We could abolish the filibuster and get a lot of Doge cuts through. And you've written at length on your Twitter about abolishing the filibuster. I'm just curious if you think that we should do that still.
I did a lot of previous work on different topics because I am an economic policy expert, and respectfully, I'm here to talk about Doge cuts.
Okay, but we could abolish the filibuster and get Doge cuts. This is totally germane here. Do you think we should?
I am here to talk about Doge cuts, not strategies for achieving more of them, but the harms that they have produced for working families.
That's a convenient change of opinion. I noticed that most of your comments about the filibuster were during the Biden administration.
I am here to talk about statements that come in the form of a question. And when I say things that are definitive, they are with an uptick at the end of my voice. This affectation used to be called being a valley girl, but now we use it in academia to signal our sneering contempt at you, the people who are asking questions and do not get in line and do what we, the commie expert class, 32-year-old lady thinks. The sneering contempt of this like child, like 9 years of experience in the entire workforce. You're an expert. This is the joke. George Hill and I have talked about this at length offline. The intelligence community has a standard for what's called a SME, a subject matter expert. Those are generally people who have been in the field for decades, 2-3 decades. They know all of the ins and outs because they actually live. Bernie Sanders could be a SME. He's old enough, right? I mean, he could be a SME on climate change. Bernie Sanders saw when we went into the last heat wave and when we descended out and came out of the last ice age. He's been on the planet for eons. So he could be a SME. And you wouldn't be upset about finding out that a guy in his 50s who'd spent 30 years of professional experience working in the same field. I'm not a SME on anything. I'm like the jack of all trades. I've seen too many things. I got 80% mastery maybe, and then I get bored and I move on to something else. That's just what I do. I'm not an expert on streaming or podcasts or media. I'm not an expert on any of the things that I do today. I'm learning every day, as you guys can see. This lady is claiming expert status in under a decade of work experience, of which not all, I looked at it. It was like she worked on campaigns and stuff like that. And she's here to talk about Doge cuts. I'm going to talk about the Doge cuts, and I'd like to see them cut. And I'm not interested in talking about the filibuster, which I previously was interested in because I thought that we could get our policy agendas done. It's nauseating. That woman is an FBI intelligence analyst. You go and you talk to them. They're like 28 years old. They've been working there for 2.5 years, and they come and tell you like what the transnational organized crime threat looks like. And this is what we think you need to be doing. You need to be targeting like these people. That woman works at the Commerce Department, and she's telling you like what we think the trade and tariff thing should be on this thing because I've been working on it for 3 years and I am an expert. They all go on and they all become more senior. And they don't ever work in the actual fields that they're talking about. This is the classic sort of like if you're in government, it's kind of like being a teacher where they used to make fun of teachers for being people who couldn't do. I used to have the best teachers were the ones that actually had done. And then they were like, I'm going to now retire. Like a George Hill is a great example of that. Spent 30 years in the intelligence sphere and then became a college professor based on a bulk of experience and gave real world experience to people. That's it. Our government is run by these women and men who are bullied into it. So it's nice seeing Brandon Gill not be bullied into it, but it all feels like the same exact KFOB nonsense that I led with. So I'm going to close with the same argument that I opened with. Joe Rogan talking about Nancy Pelosi's cans because we need it.
Yeah. It just seems fake. There's so much that seems fake. You know, it's like all the news. The people that are politicians, everyone feels like they're like, who's the Fetterman character? This guy is wearing a hoodie and shorts. That's the wacky neighbor, you know. And then Jasmine Crockett, she's that loudmouth lady from down the street, and they're like, oh, here comes Jasmine, shit's gonna get crazy, you know. And Maxine Waters like, oh, she's old, leave her alone, leave her alone. It's like these are fake people. Nancy Pelosi, this giant tittied lady who wants all the money, who's been in politics for 150 years.
I won't play longer than that, but yeah, that's them. They're all made up. And then you find out that this lady was running the country and running the auto pen and signing all of the executive orders for the last 4 years. You remember because Joe Biden, he was not competent to stand trial. That's what the Hur report found. They put out that he was this kindly elderly man. They wouldn't be able to convict him because he didn't have sentient awareness of where he was or what he was doing and couldn't even keep like dates on a timeline organized in his mind. And he just wandered off like a human Roomba that didn't find where the charger was. Here she is. This woman was grilled in front of the Oversight Committee the other day, and she's exactly the same lady, different skin color, but exactly the same lady, just a couple years more advanced, a little bit dumpier body, same sneering, useless attitude that runs the government. Because if you wait long enough and your president is mentally vacant, you can sign off on all the orders. So who told this lady what to do? Was it on her own? We don't know. But this is the real scandal, because the real power is not the people who are writing the scripts. It's the people that are actually out there doing the thing, because some people are actually doing the work. They're just doing shady stuff like this.
A brief comment. Thank you. I just spoke with the House Oversight Committee, Majority and Minority Council. I answered every question, was pleased to discuss my public service, and it was a thorough process, and I'm glad I answered every question.
Was there an effort to disguise President Biden's condition?
Absolutely not.
Walk away. No further questions. Was there an effort to disguise that Joe Biden was completely out to lunch? Absolutely not. And she leaves. That's the same voice you just heard in the little white girl with the mousy ears sticking out from behind with the little mousy glasses on her face. That was an expert, and she's here to talk about Doge cuts and all the things they do for families. Same lady, except she looks like Mindy, whatever that name is, the Mindy chick that's the comedian. Who, by the way, lost a lot of weight. I found that out this morning because I was going to try to do a side-by-side. I didn't. What are we doing about it? What's the action? Here's the end of the day. You ready? Here's the end. What is the Republican power structure that has Senate, barely, and House, and the White House, and a bunch of different state houses around the country? What are they going to do? They're going to hold more hearings. James Comer's going to get to the bottom of this. Probably sometime after you reelect him after the midterms, after the next time that he gets reelected, after some time. Forever. New Bongino rule, 628 months, right? Here we go.
What would your committee have to find to make the determination that these EOs, these laws, are null and void?
Who gave the authority for the low-level staffers to take that document, put it in the auto pen, and press power to sign Joe Biden's name? Because many of those documents were signed on days where Joe Biden wasn't anywhere near the White House. There's no evidence of any email communication between the president and these staffers. We have the Hur report where Robert Hur sat down at length with Joe Biden and concluded that he couldn't even sit in front of a jury because he couldn't even remember the date of his election and of tragic events in his family's life and things like that. So there's plenty of evidence that Joe Biden wasn't mentally fit to make a lot of these decisions. We want to know who actually gave the authority to do these executive orders and these pardons, because...
Nope. Just find out the person that did it. Who pushed the button? She was the one who pushed the button? Fine. You start there. Did you have authority? Were you told by the president to do it? No. Got it. We're charging you. Then we're going to charge the person that told you. Then we're going to charge the person that told them. We're going to work our way up. Instead, we're doing the who ordered the code red? Who ordered the code red? We're never going to get to the truth. Why? Because we can't handle the truth. Apparently, that's just the question. Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? And if not, why? All right, we're going to do something funny as we end up here because we need to, because God forbid. But before we do, please, if you're watching, we've been offline for a day. Now we're back. Can you give us a like over on Rumble? We'd really appreciate that. It's rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin if you want to catch the live show. If you want to catch the YouTube show, you could do it as well. It's youtube.com/@Kyle Seraphin. I see you folks over there as well. A little bit smaller crowd than we've had in a couple days, but we're going to build it back up from getting that weird little day off. Locals, if you guys want to support the program directly, I'm going to post some fun videos over there shortly of some of the stuff we're doing. We went onto a complete solar generator that's powering this whole thing, so I'm going to give you some behind the scenes there. It's KyleSeraphin.com. And then lastly, you can share the show with the Spotify link, which is in fact KyleSeraphinShow.com. Make sure you are liking, subscribing, send us your snarky comments. My favorite way that I had a guy end all of his stuff when he was doing a sales presentation was, are there any questions, comments, sarcastic remarks? All three of those will be accepted. Something that has nothing to do with any of these things and just a way for us to breathe as we go into our Thursday. We're going to do more on Nima, is that her name? Nima Tamdem, I think is her name. More on that on tomorrow's show. Let's leave today with a little bit of a thing that we all have experienced. When someone leaves the group chat, by the way, I'm usually the one who leaves the group chat. I get sick of people doing too much in the blue and too much in the pink and the overlap. If the group chat becomes the overlap that we were talking about, if it looked like this in the group chat, I'm out. But maybe you need to have the moderator have like a little conversation with you. This is what happens when you leave the group chat in kind of a group like the Suspendables. Someone's going to come and have a chat with you like this.
So what's this I hear about you wanting to leave the friend group chat?
What?
Our friend group chat, where we text each other. We send each other memes. We riff jokes. Talk a little trash.
Moderator, the group chat's too lively. I got a family.
And I'd hate for you to not see your family. But leaving the group chat is not in the rules. Makes me nervous.
Very nervous.
Because we get pretty mean in the group chat. And I'd hate for any of that to get out. I mean, Tony, what did you say yesterday?
Our friend Jeff got fat.
And he most certainly has. And then I added that his new baby's ugly. Now, what am I to do if my big fat friend Jeff and his ugly baby find out that's what I said?
No, I didn't say nothing. I thought it was funny.
You thought it was funny? You thought it was funny? Funny, haha. Funny LOL.
Funny ha-ha.
Then where was my ha-ha, Dave? Not even a thumbs up from you.
Look, I don't like who I am in there. The pressure to riff is too high.
Nobody likes who they are in the group chat, Dave.
That's where the real person is. None of us like the real person that's on there. When you peel back all the layers and you just get to the mean things about Fat Jeff and his ugly baby. Anyway, I don't know why I thought that was funny, but it's a really good little skit. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thanks for bearing with us through the chaos of yesterday, which was more chaotic on my end. I promise you. I spent all day trying to get things done right, but I think we're back on the program. We're gonna have a redundancy failover router set up. 2 is 1, 1 is none. We'll have all that stuff, and we'll explain to you what we've done over on the local side if you guys want to see and set up your own lives with a little bit more redundancy and power and internet and so on and so forth. Anyway, I'll post this video too, because this video is awesome. That's a great little thing that got sent. By the way, that was sent to me in the group chat this morning. My boys, the Suspendables. If you guys are still watching right now and you guys want to go catch the tail end of the American Radicals podcast, I'll send you there on Rumble. Until then, we'll have Steve Friend on tomorrow. God bless all of you. Look forward to seeing you in the morning. Have a great day. God bless you. See you then.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.